Going down this weekend, we have the final UFC event of the year, UFC Vegas 112, Royval versus Kape. And in this video, I will be giving you my full card breakdown and predictions. Let's see if we can absolutely nail this card and go out with a bang here in 2025. Man, let's waste no time and hop straight into this thing. First fight of the night, we got Tereza Bleda versus Jamey-Lyn Horth. I feel like this is a pretty straightforward matchup to me. While I think Jamey-Lyn Horth is a pretty decent fighter, and I don't think that she excels in particularly any one area, she really likes to kind of impose her will and her physicality upon her opposition, right? She's 3-2 in her last 5 in the 2 losses, right? She goes out there, loses to Veronica Hardy, but I mean, Veronica Hardy's a pretty good fighter. She's got the wizard, Dan Hardy, in her corner, her husband. And Veronica Hardy just kind of danced around the outside, picked and poked at her. So a little bit of a tricky stylistic matchup. Goes out there, loses to a well-rounded fighter in Miranda Maverick. She's coming off of a nice victory over Vanessa Demopoulos. But I just feel like Jamey-Lyn Horth just doesn't really have the overall skill set to be able to beat Tereza Bleda, and I don't think that she's bullying Bleda around. I mean, Bleda is bigger than Jamey-Lyn Horth, so Jamey-Lyn Horth is not going to be the bigger and more physically imposing fighter in this fight, and I feel like that's kind of where this becomes an issue for Jamey-Lyn, because if you watch Tereza Bleda, she is excellent on the ground. She has nasty submission skills, ferocious ground and pound, and that's what we saw in the Contender Series, right? That got her into the UFC, and the only loss in her career is to Natalia Silva, who is just looking like an absolute nightmare, and I think just might be a champion in the UFC at some point. So she's very ferocious on the feet, so I really don't look at this loss with much, because we know how good Natalia is. Then she goes out there and beats Gabriela Fernandez by decision, but it's been a while since we've seen Tereza Bleda, but she's 24 years of age. Think she's, filling out into her frame, working on some things. I think she comes back here and puts on a very good performance in her return after being away for a couple years. I think that she just outworks Jamey-Lyn Horth, takes her down, beats her up on the floor, and maybe she even locks in a submission here. I wouldn't be shocked if she finishes, a tough, durable Jamey-Lyn. But I'm going to say that Tereza Bleda just outskills and imposes her will on Jamey-Lyn Horth. I just don't think Horth is going to be able to bully her around like she does with a lot of her other opponents. Give me Tereza Bleda, who's more physical and more well-rounded as a fighter. While Horth could maybe give her some issues on the feet, I could see, Horth, if she stops the takedowns, marching her down, landing the striking, maybe picking up a decision. But I like Tereza Bleda in this fight. I just think she's the better overall fighter. And like I said, I don't think Horth can just lean on her physicality to get this one done. Bleda is ferocious on the ground. I think she gets the fight there, wins on control time, and lands quite a few damaging shots on Horth, and also threatens with the sub game. So wouldn't be shocked if Bleda gets a sub either, but I'm going to say by decision. Next, we got a weird one here. We got Alan Frye, AJ Frye is what he goes by, versus Guilherme Pat. Weird that this is on a UFC card, right? I know it's in the Apex, so not a huge difference, sometimes with some of the fights that get added to the Apex compared to like a Dana White Contender Series fight. And to me, this is just the UFC just looking for another guy in the heavyweight division, right? We got 2 guys that are just completely unproven. And anyone out there that tells you that they have high confidence with this fight, I think they're lying, because I have no idea who's going to win this fight, man. I'm just being honest. I have no idea, because from what I've seen, right, with the little bit of regional film that's out there, I don't know, man. I'm not really impressed with either guy, right? AJ Frye is a good athlete, right? He's 6'4", right? Kind of rangy, and I'd say that he's the more gritty kind of fighter, right? He trains over at Brunson MMA and Fitness in North Carolina, which is Derek Brunson's team over in Wilmington there. So I mean, I've actually think that I've seen this guy fight live back when he was an amateur, maybe, Alan Frye. And I mean, he's pretty good, right? He's durable, moves forward, walks guys down. He's 6-0 for a reason, right? But again, the strength, the schedule, it's just not there, right? But again, getting regional fights, it's not always the easiest thing. I think people rip on guys a lot for that. It's not always easy to get great opposition on the regional scene depending on the promotion. So not his fault, but from what I've seen, I don't know, man. I'm not super wowed on the feet. I mean, his striking is decent, moves forward, pushes a pace on guys, right? He's pretty athletic for a heavyweight, I will say that. And, maybe he breaks out the ground game in this fight. Something I couldn't find a ton on, because I think if AJ Frye has a competent ground game, I mean, training with Derek Brunson, I would imagine his wrestling's probably all right at least. I think if he comes out with a wrestle-heavy game plan, just puts Pat up against the fence, takes him down, and tries to drag this out of the first round, I feel like Alan Frye could end up finding some success in winning. Maybe beats up Pat on the ground, stops him. Maybe Frye just catches him on the way in. But I'm just going to kind of look at the intangibles here and go off of kind of what I'm seeing. And I feel like Guilherme Pat might be a problem here for AJ Frye. And it's not because I think that Guilherme Pat is some world beater. Like, I want to make that very clear. But if you go back and watch some of these fights, man, like, he was pretty active for a while. But anytime we get these Brazilian prospects, dog, taxi cab drivers in Brazil is usually who they're fighting. So I'm always like, remember Rafael Siqueira, who I don't even know if he's in the UFC anymore, comes over, big menacing looking guy, pretty record, and he goes out there, right, knocking people out on the regional, scene. Then he comes into the UFC and he's literally a moving heavy bag for prospects that the UFC's trying to build to go out there and knock out. So I don't know that Guilherme Pat is that guy though, right? I'm watching some of these fights and he's pretty ferocious on the feet. Right, and at least he fought over an LFA, again, not the greatest opposition either. So again, a lot of unknowns here. I feel like neither guy has been tested. But with Guilherme Pat, I mean, this guy is big, man. He's explosive. He's got that, karate, taekwondo background, and he's got that point fighting type of style. Right? I'm not saying he's, Cyril Gahn, but he's got that kind of style. Light-footed on the feet, moves incredibly well for a heavyweight. Both of these guys can at least move. Like, I don't think that they're fat blobs or anything. So I do think that they bring more to the table than a lot of other guys you might see, that the UFC's looking at for heavyweights. I don't know, man. I have no confidence in a pick for this fight because there's a lot of unknown here. But I am going to say that Guilherme Pat is able to get a knockout in this fight. I think he comes out with a point to prove. I think it's just going to be his pinpoint striking and just kind of how he floats around on the outside. I think he's going to catch Alan Frye on the way in because I feel like Frye, look, an 80.5-inch reach for Guilherme Pat. He's big, he's strong, he's nimble, and I think that as Frye tries to close the distance and try to make this one of those gritty type of fights, I just feel like that's where Guilherme Pat is going to be able to snipe him down the middle with good, clean, straight combinations, and that's another thing I like about Pat, man. Good straight jab, pops that thing out there, straight right hand down the middle. The jab is a piston, and he's got a nasty high kick that he knocked the guy out with before, so flexible. Got to be careful dealing with these guys that can move like that have that karate background and are flexible and fast and just very physically strong. Like I said, low confidence because guys are both, unproven to this point. But I'm going to go with Guilherme Pat to get this one done by a knockout. But I could very much see Alan Frye going out there and winning this one as well. So like I said, low confidence. I don't know. I'll go with the guy to me that maybe has the more intangibles from what I've seen thus far. I'll go with Guilherme Pat. All right, we got Luana Santos versus Melissa Croden. Now, I actually think that this is a fun scrap here because Melissa Croden, she's actually someone that I picked in her UFC debut to go out there and beat Tainara Lisboa, and she looked very impressive in her debut, right? And I feel like Canada finally has, another prospect outside of Jasmine Jasdavicius, Mike Malott, some of those other fighters out there, right? Ayman Zahabi. It feels like Melissa Croden could be throwing her name into the hat to possibly someone to keep an eye on, and look, she's very, very, very fun to watch, right? For WMMA, I know people kind of go, right? But Melissa Croden's a dog. She moves forward. A lot of her wins actually come by way of KO, right? So she's ferocious on the feet. She's hunting for the finish. She's got power, good speed. Her ground game seems pretty decent. We got to see it in the Lisboa fight. And I know Lisboa, she's got the Muay Thai background, not really known for being much of a grappler, but Tainara actually ended up developing a pretty decent ground game. And what we saw from Croden in the fight was just a dog attitude, moving forward, putting the volume on her, landing good combinations upstairs, landing good kicks. And I feel like that's what we're going to see her utilize in this fight. And, the loss out of these last five here, right? I went and checked out this fight a little bit before I picked her in this last fight, which is why I had confidence picking her. Her loss here was to Jacqueline Cavalcanti, who's been on an absolute tear in the UFC, who I'm very high on is Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Very, very good striker, right? Who just went out there and beat Mayra Bueno Silva, right? So Jacqueline Cavalcanti's rangy. She's clean on the feet. And, Melissa Croden was eating some big shots, right? So Croden's durable. She stays pretty safe on the ground, right? And I feel like that's a little bit of an issue maybe in this fight here. Is Luana Santos, she's been around for a while in the UFC. Even though she's almost 26, she's been around, right? Stopped Juliana Miller on the floor, right? She picked up a couple wins here, right? Got the stoppage here, right? She's got a good ground game, right? Loses to Casey O'Neill, right? Who's got kind of a busy style of striking on the feet to where I see some comparisons in Casey O'Neill's style to someone like Melissa Croden. I actually think Croden is more dangerous. Right, and then she goes out there and she did sub Tainara Lisboa. So both fighters in their last, fights were able to finish Lisboa, who isn't really that great. I don't know. I think that this is a close fight, but I have a little bit more confidence in Melissa Croden to get this one done. And I wouldn't even be shocked if she gets a TKO stoppage at some point in this fight. But from what we've seen from Luana Santos, I don't think that she's ever been finished. I think, at least when it comes to being knocked out. So she's durable, she's tough, she's got a solid ground game. You know, she's a younger fighter who's developing and getting better and better, but I like what I've seen from Melissa Croden. She's got the dog attitude, right? And anytime you get a fighter that's aggressive and willing to get after it in WMMA, that's just kind of has this menacing vibe to him, I like to side with fighters like that. So I'm going to go Melissa Croden here. I think she's the busier fighter. I think she stops the takedowns. And even if she does get taken down, she's shown a pretty solid ability to, safely work back to her feet, get to the underhooks, get her back off the octagon side, get back to space, and immediately put the pressure on you. I think that's what we see in this fight. I think Santos takes her down. Croden creates that space, pushes her back up against the fence, and just starts to let the combinations go. So I think there's a good chance we see Santos get finished in terms of a KO for the very first time. So wouldn't be shocked if that happens. But I will say, given the durability of Santos, I'm going to say Croden gets this one done by decision. I like the busyness with the striking, and I like the ferociousness and the power that she possesses. I like what I saw in the debut. She was a dog, I think, coming into this fight. I picked her. She made me look good, so I'm going to go ahead and pick her again. I think she's an underdog again here. Yeah, so I'll go Melissa Croden. All right, next we got Sharaf versus Steven Asplund. Teddy boy, 2 chains. Dude, listen, Steve Asplund, I like this guy, man, right? Comes on to the Contender Series, right? Has that incredible weight loss journey, right? Makes fun of himself, all that kind of stuff, right? Grabbing his... He's a wild dude, man. Teddy boy. Steven Asplund's a dog, man. I really like this guy. He's got personality to him. Goes out there on Dana White's Contender Series. I think his dad wanted to be in the UFC, couldn't make that happen. And now here is his son, Steven Asplund, going into the UFC. And just a really fun story, man. Really cool story. Really just kind of inspiring story. The weight loss journey. Just all the stuff that this guy's got going on. And I just feel like certain fighters like that, they have a different kind of purpose, man, where Steven Asplund's not just going to go in there and even if he's out-techniqued, he's not going to give up on himself. He's a guy that just has this dog attitude. He's got that vibe, man, where Steve Asplund's looking to scrap. He's not coming in here trying to lay on somebody, try to stick and move, jab and leg kick for 15 minutes. Steve Asplund has every intention of putting your lights out. And that's what we've seen throughout his career, right? It's nasty finishes. Over in LFA, which, again, fighters that come over from LFA, I feel like that's a pretty solid promotion when it comes to translating over to the UFC, right? And his only loss was to Denzel Freeman, who just picked up a UFC, I know a lackluster debut, but I picked Freeman to win that fight, and he goes out there and wins his debut, right? And Freeman had fought, I believe, over in PFL, who's a well-rounded heavyweight. That's the one drawback to Steve Asplund, is if the fight hits the floor, he tends to look a little bit like a fish out of water on his back, but I don't know if we get there, right? But Sharaf, I mean, credit to this guy, right? Because he comes in, makes his debut against Junior Tafa, who, we kind of joke around and say, fade a Tafa, brother, right? That's kind of the thing to do now. But, I mean, Junior Tafa's, pretty good on the feet, right? He's a good striker, got the striking background. I don't know if Steven Asplund is a better striker than Junior Tafa, given maybe, Tafa's a little bit more technical. But Steve Asplund loves to scrap, man. And I think Sharaf, he can be dangerous as well, right? He's got some power, more so known for his striking. But I think that we see Sean come out here and try to grapple pretty early with Steven, try to get the fight to the floor, try to slow him down, try to drag this thing out, and maybe Sean can land a big shot of his own. But I don't think so, man. I think Steven Asplund comes out here and puts on a show in his UFC debut. I think he goes out here and gets a first-round knockout. Makes it look pretty easy, man. I know Junior Tafa, right, again, that's a solid guy to fight in your debut in terms of the striking. We know Tafa's got no ground game. But I think Steven Asplund, with his scrappiness, dog attitude, and this is just a motivated guy, man. A guy that is truly happy to be in the UFC. I feel like it's going to take a lot more than a guy like Sharaf to get him out of there, man. So the smoke, I think he wants the smoke in this one, and he's going to regret it because I think Steven Asplund is going to put his lights out pretty early in round one. Steven Asplund's explosive on the feet, good striking, good straight combinations. I like Steven Asplund, man. Titty boy. I think he goes out there and gets a first-round KO. I like what I've seen from Steven Asplund. He's got some personality, can talk on the mic. Give me Steven Asplund, man. I think he goes out there and makes it look easy. All right, next we have Neil Magny versus Yaroslav Amosov. Hey, dog. I am really looking forward to this one. Now, Yaroslav Amosov is a guy that I have been calling to come into the UFC for a number of years now. And what I love about this move is, not only is Yaroslav Amosov like an absolute savage and a true problem, right? That was over in Bellator. He's in the prime of his career. He's 32 years of age, right? He's got a wealth of experience, 28-1 as a pro, right? Almost was able to get to 29-0, but he did lose and get stopped by Jason Jackson. But Jason Jackson's a really good fighter, right? I know it's Bellator, but I think Jason Jackson is a guy that could actually do pretty good in the UFC. I know we don't always see the PFL guys translate very well. Jason Jackson is very dangerous on the feet, and he's pretty well-rounded. I think Jason Jackson trains at Killcliff FC in Florida at that, gym that's got all these guys like Shavkat and, RDR. So, he's a good fighter. And Yaroslav Amosov is very, very good on the ground. He's in the prime of his career. I think he's coming over at the right time, man. Now, I don't know about him being as big of a favorite as he's probably going to be coming into this fight and what it looks like here, at least on Tapology, but it's kind of for good reason, man, because Yaroslav Amosov, if you go back and watch these fights, beating a guy like Logan Storley, again, it's Bellator, it's not the UFC, it's not the highest level, but still, Logan Storley is a very good wrestler. He's a guy that can really grapple, man. Goes out there, beats Douglas Lima, which almost, 4.5 years ago, Douglas Lima was what is that, damn near 5 years ago. Lima's good, man. At least back at that time before he was washed. Some of the nastiest calf kicks in MMA. Good striking. Good takedown defense. Right? And then he goes out there and beats Logan Storley in the rematch and made it look even easier this time, right? Then he did get stopped by Jason Jackson. He's coming off of a win over Curtis Millender, but that's a wash Curtis Millender. I think used to be in the UFC back in the day, was in Bellator, and he went out there and easily disposed of him in the first round by sub, which he should have done that. But Neil Magny is not the easiest guy for a debut. And I understand that Neil Magny's 38. He's been around the block. He's an OG. And really the losses of Neil Magny, especially out of his last five, he's losing to guys like Michael Morales and Carlos Prates, who are arguably the two most dangerous guys in the welterweight. Well, not even arguably, but are two of the most dangerous guys in the welterweight division right now. They're young. They're motivated. They're explosive. But when Neil Magny's not in there with guys like that, remember he was getting out-grappled by Mike Malott, right? Getting his legs obliterated by Malott. And then the ghost of Neil Magny's past, right? Struck in round 3 when Malott slowed down and was able to get him out of there. Goes out there and beats Zaleski dos Santos. I picked him in this fight, right? And he goes out there and pulls it off. He looked very good in this fight. But again, dos Santos is older as well, so it was kind of an old heads affair in that fight. And then he goes out there and I thought Jake Matthews won the fight. And then it was like that weird whole stoppage, not stoppage, whatever. And then he goes out there and finishes Jake Matthews on the ground, but he was in trouble on the floor by Jake Matthews. Again, we haven't seen Yaroslav Amosov in the UFC yet, but this is a guy that I've been watching for years, man, and I've been waiting for Yaroslav to come over to the UFC, and I think he's coming over at the right time, right? The last time he fought 8 months ago, so he's been a little bit busy lately, had the layoff, all that kind of stuff. I think he comes back here and comes out here and has a very impressive debut. And I think that he's honestly going to submit Neil Magny in the very first round. If you're getting in trouble, I know Mike Malott's a very good prospect. I know Jake Matthews is very good on the ground and good on the feet. And those guys have proven themselves in the UFC. And we haven't seen Yaroslav in the UFC. That's the big factor. So I'm very weary. I usually kind of fade these guys that are coming over from Bellator/PFL making their debut. And I've had a lot of success doing that. But I believe that Amosov, come on, man. Like, he's in his prime. His ground game is elite. And whenever the fight hits the floor, he's not just some guy that's controlling dudes. He's got nasty ground and pound, excellent submission skills. And even on the feet, he's dangerous. He's pretty dangerous on the feet. Not really where he wants to be. But, I feel like he passes the Neil Magny test here. But the reason that I kind of go, ooh, is because Neil Magny is not the easiest guy to put away. Like, I know that Prates and Morales are knocking him out, but Yaroslav is not them on the feet. Right, it's more so the ground game, and we've seen that Magny's very good on the ground, and he's a tough gatekeeper. That's kind of what Neil Magny is at this point. 6'3", 80-inch reach, long, rangy guy, can bully dudes in the clinch, but he's not very good on the outside with his striking, doesn't have a ton of power. It's really the clinch where Neil Magny can really get going. So I think if Neil, can drag this fight out a little bit, can kind of impose his will on Amosov and be like, hey, this is the UFC, man. I've been fighting a better opposition here in the big names, and you're not one of those guys, right? And go out there, get in a clinch, let the elbows and knees go. I could see Neil Magny maybe pulling off the upset here. So I feel like this fight, maybe the odds should be a little bit closer, whatever they are. I don't know if this is accurate on here, but I think that Yaroslav Amosov really is that good. Again, I get nervous because it's a guy coming over, making the debut. The Bellator guys, when they come over, it doesn't always look great in the debut. I think Amosov in the prime of his career is motivated. The skills that we have seen, judging on what we have seen, he clearly passes the eye test in terms of the skills. And we've seen Gilbert Burns take down a Magny and get him out of there early with a sub. We've seen Magny in trouble on the floor early in these fights. I think that Yaroslav gets the fight there, and I don't think he's letting Magny off the hook. And keep in mind, Magny's got a lot of miles on him, taking a ton of damage, and he's got some records, man. So Magny, respect to the OG, love me some Magny. But I got to fade him in this fight, man, because it's not so much, what Magny, is going to do or isn't going to do. It's just I believe Amosov is that good. So a little bit of a lengthy breakdown here, man, but I'm high on Yaroslav Amosov. I think he goes out there and puts on a showcase in his debut, gets to round 1 sub. Next, we got Joanderson Brito versus Melsik Baghdasaryan. I like this fight. Because Joanderson Brito is a guy that I've been pretty high on. I know a lot of us have, right? Especially in the featherweight division. He's a guy that's 30 years of age. He's coming off of 2 L's, but keep in mind, that recent loss to Pat Sabatini, Pat is looking like an absolute nightmare, right? Pat just went out there and dominated a scrambly little rascal in Chepe Mariscal, and he made that look pretty easy. Right, he was very, very dominant, right? So losing to Pat Sabatini, I feel like that loss, it's not going to age bad. I don't think it's aged bad at all, but as we start to go, I think Sabatini is someone that's going to be contending at the top of the weight class pretty soon. I'm not saying he's going to be a champ, but he's a guy that's definitely going to climb the rankings here. And then losing a close call to William Gomez, who's a tricky, rangy guy from range, right? But then goes out there, stops Jack Shore, right? Submits JSP, who's good on the ground, finishes Weston Wilson on the ground. Look, Joanderson Brito's good, man. He's solid on the feet. He's got some power, good kicks, nice combinations with the boxing. But really, I think that he's going to want to get the fight to the floor here where I think he has a pretty sizable advantage, right? Melsik Baghdasaryan, kickboxer, coming into the UFC, right? He's been here for a while. Hasn't been the most active guy, but whenever he, decides to randomly spawn on these cards, he puts on a show. Right at the end of the day, he looks flashy. He's got the kickboxing, the snappy, fast kicks, dangerous power, very explosive, moves really, really well. So he's got high IQ on the feet to where you got to be very careful if you're Joanderson Brito sitting on the outside playing kind of that, tit-for-tat game at range. That's where Melsik Baghdasaryan wants to be. But we saw Josh Kulabau get to his back and finish him with a rear naked choke. And I'm sorry, if Josh Kulabau is doing that, I feel like you should be losing sleep at night if you're Melsik Baghdasaryan, or if you're picking Melsik, I feel like you should be losing sleep at night leading up to this fight because that ain't good. Because Joanderson Brito, to me, is light years ahead of Josh Kulabau on the ground, and he beat Tucker Lutz. My guy, Tucker Lutz, man. But again, Tucker Lutz, his game didn't translate super well to the UFC. Love Tucker Lutz, man, but just got to keep it real. Training out of ground control, fought at Shogun, right? That's my guy, man. But at the end of the day, he was kind of banging up Tucker Lutz from range, but Tucker was having a lot of success on the ground. And Tucker is not a better grappler than Joanderson Brito, right? Goes out there, gets absolutely ran over by Jean Silva. But Jean Silva, absolute dog, man. Literally, outside of the Diego Lopez loss, and he was even having a lot of success against Diego, and we know how good Silva is. I just feel like Joanderson Brito on the feet, while Melsik is, the prettier, snappier striker, I do say that he has maybe a little bit of an advantage there, but I don't even think it's by much because in terms of the MMA striking, Joanderson Brito is right there. I think he can sting Melsik on the feet, threaten with the level changes, land some good shots upstairs, but I ultimately think that Joanderson Brito is going to act like he's striking with him, mix things up, kind of give Melsik this false sense of security, and then we're going to see him come out in round 2 after taking some notes and downloading the data in round 1. He's going to go out there, get Melsik down, get to the back, and submit him. Very similar, I think, to how Josh Kulabau got the job done. I think that's kind of what we see as a little bit of a repeat of this fight here. And I think Josh Kulabau is pretty good, don't get me wrong, but I think that Joanderson Brito is probably better on the ground, at least in my opinion. So I'm going Joanderson Brito by second round sub here. If not, I think he wins a decision. And if Brito stands on the feet, can't get the takedowns, he could definitely be in some trouble against a very fast striker in Melsik Baghdasaryan. Next fight, we have Amanda Lemos versus Gillian Robertson. This is a tough one. This is a tricky one here, man, because I think that, isn't Lemos taking this one on a little bit of a shorter notice or something like that? I think so. Gillian Robertson has been on a nice little win streak here, right? She's won 4 out of her last 5, right? I think she, was working with Dean Thomas. It just feels like Gillian Robertson's turned a little bit of a page in her career, right? It felt like she was, more of a kind of heading down the journeywoman type of avenue. To where now, I mean, ever since this loss here where she loses to Tabitha Ricci 2.5 years ago, I mean, Ricci's shown to be pretty good, right? She's won 4 in a row. But again, look at the opposition here. Poliana Viana. She should be Poliana Viana, right? Michelle Waterson-Gomez, an older version of Michelle, goes out there. Luana Pinheiro, right? Decent win, goes out there and is able to get the stoppage over Marina Rodriguez 7 months ago. That's a good win. But again, Marina Rodriguez was kind of on a little bit of the downturn, but a rangy striker on the feet, but no ground game. Gillian Robertson is good on the ground. She has solid wrestling. She's good up against the fence. Her takedown game, it's really good. Out in space, pushes you up against the fence. She can fight that dirty, gritty, grimy type of, fight, which I think favors her in a lot of her matchups. She's good on the ground, solid ground and pound, good submission game. She's well coached again. But I don't know, man. Like, I feel like maybe, like I said, I believe Lemos is taking this on short notice. Could be wrong. I'm just trying to go off my head here. Amanda Lemos, that would be almost the only drawback for me in this fight, because while Amanda is 38 years of age, she's very dangerous. She is incredibly dangerous, and I think she is far more dangerous than Gillian Robertson. And that strength of schedule there, I don't think it's that great. I mean, you look at Lemos, her last 5, loses to Zhang Weili. We know how good Weili is, one of the best women's fighters ever. Beat Mackenzie Dern. Right, that's pretty impressive because Dern's the champ now. Got subbed by Verna Jandiroba. Again, Jandiroba's very good on the floor. Beats Yasmin Lucindo. That's a pretty good win. Goes out there, right, loses to Tatiana Suarez, but, I mean, Suarez didn't really do anything in that fight, right? And I think that she's a much better wrestler than Gillian Robertson, maybe even a better overall grappler. I don't know. So are we saying that Gillian Robertson can do better than Tatiana Suarez? Maybe. I was never that high on Tatiana Suarez, so, but I still recognize her skills, and I don't know that Gillian is a better overall grappler than Tatiana. I'm not sure. So I say Tatiana is definitely the better wrestler, but maybe Robertson, better ground and pound, better sub game, and she's better on the feet than Tatiana for sure. But I'm actually going to pick Amanda Lemos to win this fight, man. I think her takedown defense is pretty brick wall-esque. She's pretty hard to take down. Strong hips, very physically strong for the weight class. She could have a 2-inch reach advantage. Amanda Lemos has been in there with some of the best fighters. And I know she's been subbed. I think it was by Andrade or whoever, right? And it was early in the fight. And that's not a great look because I think that Gillian Robertson, given where she's at, kind of turned this new page. I feel like if Gillian can get the fight to the floor, she's going to be able to keep maybe she could keep Amanda Lemos there, have some success, soften her up with some ground and pound, lock in a sub or something. I don't know, man. I like Amanda Lemos in this fight. She's big. She's strong. She's tough to take down. She's very hard to keep down as well, especially when you get her down. She does a great job of getting those butterfly hooks in, creating space, not accepting the bottom position. I don't know, man. The way I saw Tatiana Suarez struggling to get the takedowns, I think that's pretty encouraging if you're picking Lemos in this fight. And I think on the feet, while Robertson's all right, I don't think she's better than Amanda. And even if Robertson's kind of touching her up and outscoring her, Lemos definitely has the power advantage. I think she lands the bigger, more damaging shots. Give me Amanda Lemos by a decision in this fight. But if Gillian can get the fight to the floor and keep it there, I think Robertson can get this one done. But I'm going to side with Amanda because of the takedown defense and landing the more damaging shots because of the power. Next, we have Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Marcus Buchecha. This is a weird one to me because I don't trust either guy. I don't trust either guy whatsoever. I was completely unimpressed with Marcus Buchecha in his UFC debut, right? Came over from ONE FC and, he's got this lengthy jiu-jitsu background, right? He's a very high-level jiu-jitsu player, and I get all that. But at the end of the day in MMA, we don't always see those skills necessarily translate over into the fight game, right? Obviously, if you get the fight into your world, you're going to have an advantage, but he's got to get it there first. If you go back and watch a lot of the Marcus Buchecha fights, he's just kind of a blubbery, kind of blobbing around guy in there, right? I just don't know. I don't know what this guy, I don't think his striking's good. He's durable, doesn't give up on himself, moves forward, throws these winging shots, and ultimately it's to try to get into the clinch, to get a hold of you and drag you down. But he shoots these blind takedowns, and we were seeing a lot of that against Martin Buday. But again, Martin Buday, low-key, shouldn't have been let go by the UFC. I think he was 7-1 in the UFC. So losing to Martin Buday, I don't think is a horrible loss, right? And he had some moments in the fight on the floor, right? Was controlling him, and it was rather competitive. But Marcus Buchecha's gas tank is questionable. Like I said, he's just blub, blub, blub. He's kind of blubbing his way around in there, right? If you get the fight into his world, I definitely think that there's a legit shot that he could sub Kennedy Nzechukwu, but he's got to get it there first. Right, and Kennedy Nzechukwu's coming off an awful loss, but again, Walter Walker's been heel hooking everybody, right? And by the way, I think Marcus Buchecha actually has heel hooked somebody in MMA as well, right, throughout his career, right? There you go. 3 years ago, over and one, got a heel hook. So, I mean, if Kenny Nzechukwu gets heel hooked in this fight, just get rid of him. Just get rid of him, man. So at the end of the day, Marcus Buchecha, like, you play the MMA math game. Like, is he a better jiu-jitsu guy than Walter Walker? Like, maybe. But in terms of MMA, Walter Walker beats a guy like Marcus Buchecha. Walter Walker is a better MMA fighter and maybe a better overall MMA grappler than Marcus. And if you watch some of these fights, man, especially this one with Kane, I mean, he was getting battered around and beaten up badly. I don't even know how he made it through the fight. So if you're losing to Kane, who's a big, powerful guy, I mean, Kenny Nzechukwu, he's kind of like, it reminds me of the Derek Lewis situation, where it's like some days, I'm not comparing him to Derek Lewis because Derek Lewis knocks people out and, you know, we get all that. But my comparison is some nights it just feels like Derek Lewis just is lazy and doesn't feel like fighting or something. And that's kind of the vibe I get from Kenny Nzechukwu. He comes into these fights and it's just like, he just is like bothered to be in there. He's like, I'd rather be doing something else. Or just kind of has this lousy attitude to me, right? He was a former light heavyweight, right? Got stopped by Dustin Jacoby, loses the split to Ovince St. Preux, and I'm like, what do we have here? Moves up to heavyweight, easy win over a blobby, right? Chocolate Peppa Pig, Chris Barnett. Goes out there, finishes Lucas Bresky, and is coming off of the submission loss to Walter Walker. I don't know with this fight, man. I really don't know, because if Marcus Buchecha can kind of dog it out, get the fight to the floor, you know, shoot those blind takedowns, overwhelm Kennedy, get him down, yeah, Marcus Buchecha could definitely go out there and pull off the submission. But it feels like with Nzechukwu, you just don't know what guy you're going to get. The guy that, you know, remember when Alberg was teeing off on him, gassed himself out, and then Nzechukwu ended up getting a victory over Alberg, which is pretty crazy to look at. You know, he's fought in the light heavyweight division. Lighter man, skill dog. People forget, man, you know, but I don't know, man. I really don't have a lot of confidence in this fight either way. I don't trust either guy. I think they're both kind of lousy. I'm going to go Kennedy Nzechukwu, though, by a round 2 stoppage. Maybe just wins a decision, but maybe knocks him out early. He's got the front kicks, the range. I think Buchecha is going to struggle with kind of the technicalities of Kennedy, because while I don't think, you know, Kennedy has like, you know, crazy starching power, he's not crazy speedy. He strikes like a lighter fighter. He's got the front kicks, right? He throws the leg kicks from range as well, right? Mixes up his targets. Decent, you know, boxing from range. I just feel like he's just going to kind of pick and poke from the outside and pick Marcus Buchecha apart. And I feel like with those blind takedowns, I feel like Kennedy is going to be able to see those coming. And if he drops down for a hook and tries to pull a Walter Walker, Marcus Buchecha is not nearly as fast and as athletic as a guy like Walter. So that gives me maybe a little bit more confidence to pick Kennedy in this fight. But still, I got low confidence. I don't really believe in either one of these guys. But like I said, Nzechukwu, kind of that Derek Lewis thing where it's like sometimes he just looks like he wants to go out there and he could go out there and beat people and you're like, hey, this guy looks good. Looks like he could maybe, you know, crash his way into the rankings. And then he goes out there and you're like, why is this guy even on the roster? So I think that Nzechukwu goes out there, knows that he needs a win here, and beats up on kind of a blubbery bag that if he doesn't get the takedowns is going to be in a world of trouble. Give me Kennedy Nzechukwu. I like Marcus Buchecha, you know, with the jiu-jitsu, man. Very, very good on the floor if he gets it there. Maybe he can win on minutes, control time. His gas tank is suspect. Kennedy Nzechukwu, very fuel efficient with the way that he operates on the feet. I think he maintains his range, picks Buchecha apart, digs to the body with those front kicks, folds him to the body, and then ends up just teeing off on him on the fence so we get a stoppage. But like I said, wouldn't be shocked if Buchecha gets him to the ground and ends up submitting him, because we've seen if you could get Kennedy down, he is in some trouble. Typically, Kennedy's takedown defense sometimes look good, sometimes it doesn't. So I'll just pick Kennedy in this fight. Again, low confidence. Next, we got Morgan Charriere versus Melquizael. Melquizael, man. I've been a guy that's been picking Melquizael quite a bit here, and he's been making me look good. So will I do it again in this fight? Because I like this fight, man. Morgan Charriere is another guy that I've been, you know, pretty high on, right? I shouldn't say pretty high on, but I like what he does, man. I like his game, right? He comes over, you know, into the UFC, right? And got some nasty kicks to the body. We got to see that in this fight. Goes out there, loses to Chepe Mariscal. Close one. Chepe's a dog. Goes out there, starches Gabriel Miranda. That was nasty. Loses to Nathaniel Wood. Got busted up in that fight. But look how good Nathaniel Wood is, right? That's a tough test, even though Nathaniel Wood got the robbery win in his last fight against Delgado. I mean, Wood's still good. Very technically sound. Coming off of a nice stoppage win over an older, you know, just kind of sloppy Nate Landwehr, who's a fun fighter, but technique goes out the window, relies on his chin. Morgan Charriere is fast, and he's explosive, mixes up the combinations pretty well, but he gets riled. He gets out, I wanted to say reckless and wild at the same time. Riled. He's reckless and wild, man. He's dangerous. He's fast. He's explosive. I give him that, right? And his ground game seems like it's all right. We've seen some moments. We've seen some moments where it looks good, moments where it doesn't look so good. So I'm not sold on his ground game. And on the feet, like I said, he's explosive, but he leaves a lot of windows to be countered, man. And I feel like in this fight, Melky Costa is a guy that's really starting to come into his own, right? Got stopped by Steve Garcia, but hell, that's age. I mean, Steve Garcia just went out there and brutally stopped David Onama in round number 1. I mean, Garcia has been on an absolute tear, man. That guy's, 6 KOs out of his last 7 fights or something wild like that, right? So he's an absolute menace. Right, goes out there, gets a stoppage, right? Nasty submission game, right? Goes out there, submits Andre Fili, but Andre Fili dove headfirst into a guillotine, which was just, I don't even know what Fili was thinking or what he was doing, right? Goes out there, beats C-Rod. That's a good win. Goes out there, beats Julian Erosa. That's another good win, right? Melky Costa, to me, it feels like that he is, I don't know, man. It feels like he's turning a page in his career. He's, a guy that basically, I don't think he has like a traditional background in MMA. Just started watching videos, I think he was saying, and just kind of developed his style like that. You see that on the feet. He's rangy, Muay Thai-based style, bounces in and out of range pretty well, does not move his head very well. So he is very, very hittable, which scares me a little bit in this fight. But I think Melky Costa goes out here and wins a gritty, tough decision against Morgan Charriere. I think that this is going to be like a fight of the night type of candidate, man. I think we see some good back and forths if it plays out on the feet. If it's on the feet, Charriere is going to be moving forward, throwing these big winging shots. Costa is going to be throwing the more technical punches. Like Costa to me is the more technical overall fighter. But I feel like if Costa fights smart and he's able to get this fight to the ground, he's able to get a trip, he's able to, run the pipe, whatever, get Charriere down, I think Costa's definitely live to get a submission, man. He's very good on the floor. His submission game is nasty. And if Charriere makes a mistake and kind of has a lapse in judgment with the fight IQ, which we see from time to time, and gets caught up in the moment and being all exciting and just kind of makes a poor decision by taking down Costa for some reason or getting too close, I could see Costa getting this fight to the ground in his world and pulling off a submission. So I think if this fight hits the floor and we're there long enough, I think Costa gets a submission. But I'm going to say that Charriere keeps the distance. This fight plays out on the feet. We get a lot of back and forths, but I'm going to say that Melky Costa edges this one out with the more clean striking on the feet. The kicks from range, I think he's able to outscore Morgan Charriere and get this one done by a decision. But if Costa's not careful, Charriere does have the power. He's explosive. He's not afraid of a dogfight. And I think if Morgan can make it that, he could definitely have some moments. So I think this is a close fight, but I'm going to say Mel Costa. And again, the X factor with the submission game. He's very good on the ground. Next, we got a good one. We have Cezary Almeida versus Cezary Oleksiejczuk, the brother of Michal Oleksiejczuk, man, right? Good friends of mine. Michal Oleksiejczuk and I, we go way back, man. So his brother's on the scene, and his brother is better than him. I'm going to be very honest, right? Michal doesn't like when I say that. He, punches me in the body, right? Takes body shots at me. I'm joking, man. But listen, I like Cezary. Oleksiejczuk. This is a hell of a Cezary versus Cezary, right? This is a tongue twister here. I like Cezary a lot, man. This guy's dangerous. Right? If you go back and watch the regional tape, I mean, he's got a lot of experience for a guy that's 25 years of age, right? 16-3, right? In this fight, did go out there and lose a decision, but that was a guy that seemed like he was pretty good, right? And ever since, I mean, he's been going out there stopping everybody, right? I mean, and again, the opposition's decent. I think Tommy Reese, didn't he used to be in the UFC or something? So decent opposition, right? Then comes on to the Contender Series against an undefeated Theo Hague and brutally finishes him early. I mean, those hammer fists, it was like a machine gun, right? You know, bop, 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 pause. You know what I mean? But he was out there just letting those hammer fists fly, man, and was able to get a stoppage. This guy's nasty. Fights a lot like Michal, rangy, 6'3", 75.5-inch reach, moves the head well, sharp, clean boxing. Very aggressive, nasty kicking game as well. That southpaw stance, rips to the body, rips to the head well, and also has a solid ground game from what we've seen. Good ground and pound, good on the floor. I feel like he's going to break that out in this fight unless he lands a devastating shot early on, because Cezary Almeida, man, like I was high on Cezary Almeida coming into the UFC, right? Because I always get excited. I'm a sucker for a good striker, man, and a good technical puncher, a good technical guy. That's Cezary Almeida. But out of all the guys that have came over from Glory, I feel like Cezary Almeida is one of the more underwhelming ones in the UFC. It just hasn't looked like what maybe a lot were hoping for. Maybe what the UFC was kind of hoping for, right? You bring over Izzy, Poatan, you see guys knocking people out in Almeida, knockout power. You get excited. but it hasn't always looked exactly like what you're, expecting, right? Got the decision win on the Contender Series, starches Dylan Budko, not UFC caliber, right? Loses a split decision to Kopylov, found himself in some trouble there, beats Ihor Potieria, right? Kind of win. Goes out there and finishes Abdul Razak Al Hassan, but he was in trouble once again in that fight. Almost got knocked out. Right, so some of these fights, he's finding himself in quite a bit of trouble. And I think Cezary Almeida, if this is kind of a pick and poke, tit for tat game on the outside, and we're playing that slow, methodical kickboxing fight, I think that favors Cezary Almeida, right? He's got nasty power on the feet, nasty calf kicks, nasty low kicks. He's maybe the more methodical and high-level striker, I guess you could say. But in MMA, it just doesn't look the same as it did in Glory for me. It just doesn't. And I know we see these moments where he lands these big, nasty shots like you saw against Abdul Razak Al Hassan, where you see the left hook and you're like, hey, there's the kickboxing. You see the leg kicks. You see the, some of those attributes, right? You see the knees to the body. You see some of the clinch work. But we've seen that his takedown defense has improved a little bit, but I still got questions on it. We've seen him put on his back. We've seen him taken down and have problems against guys that I don't know that are as good as Cezary when it comes to the ground game, right? Again, Cezary, yes, unproven in the UFC. Cezary Almeida, more proven. I think that Cezary is going to go out here, and I think that he's going to get a round 2 knockout, man. I think that he is going to be able to finally break through and knock out Cezary Almeida. It just feels like Cezary Almeida has been playing with fire, man. He's out there, he plays that long guard, high guard kind of game to where he doesn't move his head very well. That head sits on the center line, doesn't really roll with punches incredibly well like Poatan, who plays the long guard game, right? A lot of these kickboxers, they got that long guard. You see Poatan shoulder roll, kind of move his head, slip and rip. That's not really Cezary's game too much. You see it from time to time, but he gets clipped, man. And I feel like if you're getting clipped by some of these guys that, are big, powerful, and explosive dudes, I feel like Cezary, I know Roman Kopylov is technical, and I'm not going to say Cezary is better than Kopylov yet because we haven't seen it in the UFC. I got some high hopes for Oleksiejczuk, man. I think he goes out there and is able to put on an impressive performance, right? Michal, we saw the move, right? These guys went over to the Fighting Nerds, I believe. At least Michal has. I believe, Cezary's getting some work over there as well. I like that. Getting looks with some of those guys that the Fighting Nerds has, high-level strikers. I mean, I think Cezary, as good as Almeida is on the feet, I think that Oleksiejczuk is the better boxer, more technical at times with the straight combinations. I feel like he's going to find the chin of Almeida and hurt him on the feet, take him down, beat him up on the floor, and get a TKO stoppage. So I think that Oleksiejczuk mixes the arts together, makes this an MMA fight, doesn't just sit at range and pick and poke against Almeida. That would kind of, I don't want to say give Almeida the advantage because I do think Oleksiejczuk can strike with him on the feet. But why do that when you have an advantage with the ground game, which I think Oleksiejczuk is going to have an advantage there. I think he mixes things up and finds a round 2 TKO in this fight. But wouldn't be shocked if, Cezary goes out there, gets a little too reckless, a little too hyped up, goes out there, gets caught by Almeida because Almeida's got some power now. We all know that. Good power, good striking. It's a competitive fight while it lasts, but I think that Oleksiejczuk goes out there and gets the knockout TKO stoppage. All right. This is a good one, man. I'm looking forward to this here. For the co-main event of the evening, we have Giga Chikadze versus Kevin Vallejos. Listen, I'm a big fan of Kevin Vallejos. I think that he's one of the better boxers in the UFC, right? 16-1 as a pro, and that only loss was to, I believe, John Silva. And I think that was on the Contender Series, right? Or something like that, right? Or maybe before that, whatever. John Silva. And Kevin Vallejos, he's motivated to try to get that one back on John Silva. So he's got kind of that extra fire behind him, right? New into the UFC, making a splash, right? Looking to really burst onto the scene, right? Goes out there, starches Cam Teague on the Contender Series, goes out there, brutally finishes, Choi, goes out there and beats Danny Silva. But, it was looking dicey in that fight. But again, Danny Silva's actually shown that he's actually kind of good, right? His boxing slick, range was kind of taunting, maybe playing with the head of Kevin Vallejos, playing some of those Diaz antics, right? Street Fighter kind of vibe. So I'm a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit more nervous than I originally was coming into this fight because I'm like, look, Kevin Vallejos, he's 24 years of age, 5'7", 68-inch reach, and he's got that he's built like a tank, right? Just kind of moves forward, good head movement, good boxing. But he tends to get a little bit wild at times, right? Does throw some of the leg kicks out there, throws nasty body shots, brings the hooks around the guard. We don't always see the straightest of punches from Vallejos at times. And if you're throwing these big, wild shots and you're kind of over swinging, and you get yourself out of position and you're kind of, falling off balance when you're throwing a shot against a guy like Giga Chikadze, ooh, man, that scares me. It really scares me because I do think that Giga has slowed down. I don't think that Giga is the same fighter when he, since he first came into the UFC, but he's got the kickboxing background, very ferocious on the feet. But again, we really haven't seen Giga in prime form in a while. Where he goes out there and finishes Edson Barboza. That was impressive because that was 4 years ago, right? Loses to Calvin Kattar. Calvin made it a dogfight and put the work on Giga. Where he goes out there and beats Alex Caceres by a decision. Loses to Arnold Allen, but Arnold Allen is, I think, one of the best featherweights in the world. Incredibly underrated. And then loses to David Onama, and Onama just got smoked by, Steve Garcia. I think if this fight plays at kickboxing range, Giga Chikadze has a lot more of a chance in this fight than what people might want to give him, man. I feel like Giga might get slept on in this fight. I don't know. I'm just kind of guessing because I know people are high on Vallejos, and so am I. I'm going to pick Kevin Vallejos to win this fight by a decision, but I don't know that it's going to be as easy as what a lot of people are expecting. Maybe it is. Maybe Vallejos goes out there, puts the work on him. Giga slowed down a little bit, but still at 37 years of age, Giga Chikadze is, I think, is still by far the best fighter that Kevin has been in there with. I think Kevin, and even though Giga has shown that he struggles with guys that take him down, and, he's still, I think Giga's been working with like Dariush, right? So his takedown defense has improved. He gets taken down, does a good job getting back to his feet. He's very, very fast on the outside. So you got to close him down, which maybe that helps Vallejos because it's in the apex, the smaller octagon. So that's another thing to factor in. Easier to get to Giga Chikadze as I think about it. I'm going to pick Kevin Vallejos to win a decision. I'm going to say 29-28. I think that Giga is going to take a round off Vallejos in this fight, man. I think Vallejos is going to get tested. He got tested in that Danny Silva fight. I believe it was Danny Silva, right? Yeah, the most recent fight. And if Silva's landing on you, I think Giga Chikadze is better than a Danny Silva, especially when it comes to the striking. The stand switching, the footwork, the movement on the outside, that nasty, lethal Giga kick to the body. That thing's ferocious, man. So I think that this is more of a test than what some people might want to give it credit for. And Giga Chikadze is durable. He can eat some shots, right? He's fast. He's explosive. But I do think that Giga has slowed down a little bit. I've noticed that if you go back and watch some of these fights, man. But again, he's been in there with good opposition. Better than what Vallejos has been in there with. But I'm high on Kevin, man. I think he's good. His boxing is good. Gets a little bit wild at times, right? I'd like to see him reel in, get a little bit more technical. Think he should mix in the grappling as well. Make this kind of a, get in the pocket. Don't allow Giga to sit at range and do what he does. Because like I said, if Vallejos does that, he's taking a real chance of getting stung up in this fight, man. Because Giga's nasty. He is nasty from range, man. I love watching Giga Chikadze fight. That kickboxing background. He's lethal on the feet, man. So maybe I'm making this a little bit something that it's not, but I don't sleep on Giga, man. This guy's so fun to watch, and he's so dangerous with the kicks, the speed, the movement. And even though, like I said, maybe he's not the same guy, he's still fast. He's still fast, and I feel like he's a tricky kind of puzzle for Vallejos. Because if you're just going to strike with Giga, that's a dangerous thing to do. And in terms of the takedowns, while Vallejos is good on the floor, I don't know that he's so great that he's going to be able to keep Giga down. So I actually think that this is an interesting fight. I think Kevin's going to have to work for this one, and I think he wins a 29-28 decision. It'll be clear that he wins, but I think he's going to have to work for it in this one. I think the boxing, the pressure, we know Giga sometimes with the pressure, he tends to, melt a little bit. We saw Kattar do that, and Kattar's a good boxer at the time, right? I know Kattar's kind of, fell off a little bit. I like a young guy here in Kevin Vallejos who's motivated. He's just got a good energy to him. I like the boxing, the pressure, the fact that he can grapple. I think I feel comfortable picking him in this fight, but don't sleep on Giga Chikadze because he is ferocious from the range. I just don't think he's the same guy that he once was, but still very dangerous. Give me Vallejos. I'm high on him. I'm going to trust him to get this one done by a competitive decision. Last but not least, we have arrived at the final fight of the year, man, and I am really looking forward to this one, and it is Brandon Royval versus Manel Kape. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video, man, I see a lot of you guys watching my videos, but you're not subbed to the channel, dog. That's criminal around here, man. Sub to the channel, help me out, man. I would greatly appreciate it. I appreciate the support. Thank you, guys. It's been a great year, man, and I think that this is a great fight to end the year, right? I have never been so excited for the UFC flyweight division. I mean, I hope the UFC brings back Muhammad Mokaev. They should have never have gotten rid of him because I believe that he is one of, if not the best flyweight in the world. But when you talk about Brandon Royval and Manel Kape, These are two of the best flyweights in the world. And Brandon Royval, he's part of my big three. He's part of the big three in the flyweight division. So those of you that don't know, the big three is Alexandre Pantoja, Brandon Moreno, and Brandon Royval. And I call them the big three because they have been around at the top of this division for, forever. Forever, man. And they hold their spots well. They have ways of humbling these young guys. They have ways of finding ways to get the job done. And I love this fight. And I love that we have 25 minutes to work with because this is an important fight for the weight class. Because if Brandon Royval could get this one done and get back on track, there's some options for him in the division. But I like this fight a lot for Manel Kape, man. And I've said this time and time again. I'm hard on Manel Kape because for Manel Kape, to me, it's not so much what we see in the octagon. It's the outside stuff. It's, can we just get Manel Kape into the damn octagon? It just seems like that is one of the hardest things in MMA, like underratedly and not talked about enough. Getting Manel Kape into the damn octagon seems like an impossible task sometimes. Feels like the UFC needs like their own, task force that could just get Manel Kape into the damn octagon. It's always something. An injury, a this, a that. It's just always something. Having said all of that, I am hard on Manel Kape in that aspect. But when Manel Kape gets in the damn octagon, this is without question. And people love when I glaze Manel Kape. People like to get on me for this. I believe that Manel Kape is I think he's the best overall striker in the flyweight division. I believe it. I know Joshua Van's boxing is really good. I know Moreno is really good. I know Manel Kape, we see some moments here and there. When you get a dialed in and ready to go Manel Kape, you see what you saw against Bruno Silva on that Tampa Fight Night card. He hits that flow state. And Bruno Silva just went out there and picked up a nice win against Hyun-Sung Park, right? I know, Josh Van was able to, stop Bruno Silva as well, but still, the overall boxing of Joshua Van is the best in the weight class. But the overall striking, the movement, the fluidity, just the perfect technique and the precision, that is Manel Kape. He fights like an anime character to me, like Rock Lee or something, right? He's got like the anime attributes. Starboy, I love the nickname, man. I love watching Manel Kape fight. I am a junkie and a nerd for watching like you guys know, man, I'm a sucker for a good technical striker. And that is both of these guys, but more so, in my opinion, Manel Kape. And outside of this diciness in the Suamabayev fight with all the eye pokes, there was a lot of shenanigans going on with Kape in this fight. There's always shenanigans with Kape, especially in the Makhachev fight, right? They had the bad blood, went in there, it was more of a staring contest, but, Makhachev's really good on the ground and just really good overall. I think he just might be the best flyweight in the world. Right, beats Felipe dos Santos by decision. Everything that we have seen from Kape, even dating back to Ryzen, when this guy, he's got 7 losses on his record. When he is dialed in at 32 years of age and he is locked and loaded, Manel Kape is unbelievable and sensational to watch. Now, having said all that, this is one of the more tricky fights that he's had in his career. It feels like Manel Kape's been in the UFC for a while, but there's been a lot of shenanigans going on to where he just hasn't been super active and in there all the time, right? And Brandon Royval's been in there with the best of the best, Pantojas, right? Starching Mateos Nicolau, losing a decision to Pantoja, beating Brandon Moreno by decision, beating Tatsuro Taira. How well is that aged in a 5-rounder, right? Tatsuro Taira's been unstoppable damn near, right? Just got a huge victory and a stoppage over Brandon Moreno, right? Tatsuro Taira's probably going to be fighting for the belt soon. Goes out there and loses against Joshua Van. I picked Joshua Van in this fight, but this was an amazing fight. One of the fights of the year. Maybe the fight of the year. Who knows, right? In my opinion, it's definitely up there for sure. Brandon Royval is rangy. He's a good southpaw striker, fast on the feet. I actually met Brandon Royval at UFC 319, one of the coolest dudes, man. Him and Pantoja. They're dogs, man. Raw dog. I love watching Brandon Royval. He's fast. He's sharp from the outside. He's got an underrated ground game that maybe we see him try to break out in this fight. But we've seen Manel Kape from time to time. Maybe we see some blunders with the takedown defense. We see some issues there. I don't think we're going to see some issues in this fight, man, because Asua Mabayev, we know that he's good on the floor, man. He's a good grappler, good wrestler. Man, I think that this is a little bit of a disaster for Brandon Royval, and that's not because he got touched up by Van. Like I said, I picked Van to win that fight because of the boxing, and it was very close. That was a very competitive fight. People were acting like Van dominated that fight the way that people talk about that, man, but it was a close fight, and Brandon Royval is good on the feet, right? Moves in and out of range well, good straight left hand down the pipe, good kicks, and he's very busy. Right, and if you want to play kind of the game where Manel Kape sometimes is thinking too much, throwing out the feints, but not throwing a lot of shots out there, he'll fall behind in terms of striking totals, and he'll just get outworked by Brandon Royval. So I very much see that as a possibility in this fight. but I'm going to pick Manel Kape by a decision. Now, I'm going to say decision, but dude, I could see a late round TKO stoppage from Manel Kape. To me, it just depends on what Manel Kape shows up in this fight. If the dialed in, locked and loaded Manel Kape comes into this fight, I could see him catching Brandon Royval in the mid to later rounds, man, because the way that Royval fights, he throws these good straight shots, but he kind of is a little bit lazy in the way that he returns after throwing the combinations. And I could just see Manel Kape, the star boy, man, lighting him up in between combinations when Brandon Royval is throwing. And you have to remember, like I said before, I think Manel Kape is as smooth as it gets, man. And Brandon Royval is going to have a little bit of a height advantage, but they got the same reach. Right, and Manel Kape is good defense. He moves well. He's fast. He's nimble. Good leg kicks. Good kicks to the body. Switches stance as well. And Manel Kape does not necessarily, eat clean shots, man. Like, he does a good job of just rolling with punches, getting himself in and out of range very, very well. I'm very high on Manel Kape, man. I'm hard on him because of all the shenanigans of just getting this guy into the damn octagon. It just feels like there's just so many shenanigans with Manel Kape. But putting that to the side, I am a fan of Manel Kape, man. Watching this guy fight, he is spectacular. He really is, man. I glaze Manel Kape, and I glaze Royval because I like him a lot as well, but I just feel like stylistically, this is a very good fight for Manel Kape. Royval is very game, but I believe that Manel Kape is probably the best overall striker. I think Van is the best boxer, but in terms of the overall striking, the kicks, the knees, the stance switching, the fluidity, when he hits that flow state, Manel Kape is a serious problem. I think early on, Royval gets ahead, maybe takes the first round or two, and then you are going to see Manel Kape build his reads, start to get things going, start mixing the kicks up. I think he's got Eric Nicksick in this corner, if I'm not mistaken, trains over at Extreme Couture, and you're going to hear Eric Nicksick just going, come on, man, I need busy, throw. And then that's when Kape is going to start opening up. He's one of those guys that gets on you early as well and starts to build as the fight goes. Again, this loss to Muhammad Mokaev, I think Mokaev is probably the best flyweight in the world, if not one of them. And Mokaev has the grappling element. Brandon Royval can't grapple like Mokaev. While you could say maybe Royval is, Mokaev is a very good striker as well, but maybe Royval does have an edge over a guy like Mokaev with the striking. I'm not sure on that. Just kind of pointing it out. I think Manel Kape is a better striker than Brandon Royval, as good as he is. I think that Kape is going to intercept the offensive Royval. He's going to pepper him with the jab, bait out the reactions with the feints. Manel Kape is one of those guys, like, is he in his prime when he came along? It just wasn't this big guy that's throwing these big shots at you and kind of waiting. When guys come along like a prime Izzy and a Silva that are moving, they're slick, they're like a snake charming you out there, right? MVP, and they're drawing out these reactions, they're feinting at you, they're making you think. That stops you in your tracks, man. Makes you start to kind of overthink a little bit. So if Royval can kind of get through that barrier and not worry so much about that and just tag Kape and make him pay, I think Brandon Royval is very live to get this one done. I think Brandon Royval is very much in this fight. I think it's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be just an absolute banger, honestly. But I'm going to say that Manel Kape edges this one out and gets this one done by a decision. I think he wins 3-2. I think it's going to be competitive. But like I said, I could see if Manel Kape hits that flow state. Again, that's kind of what it depends on for me. If Kape comes in, dialed in, hits anime mode, and starts stunting, I think he will get a stoppage over Brandon Royval. We saw Van drop and hurt Royval. I know Van's got some underrated sting. I've been saying that. But I think if Manel Kape puts one on you, he's got some sting as well, and I like the fluidity of Manel Kape in this fight. I like his combinations. I like the movement. A locked and loaded Manel Kape is one dangerous dude in this weight class, and I feel like, while Manel Kape, you could say, he's 32, I feel like he's got a new gen type of style. I want to see Manel Kape go on a run towards the top of the flyweight division. It starts with this fight right here against Brandon Royval. I think he goes out there and gets the biggest win of his career. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor, please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. See you next time.